The Black Dog Salvage podcast is brought to you by
Mountain Khakis. Those guys were amazing.
They're the ones.
Still are. How did your mountain khakis hold up when you were climbing roofs and stuff?
You know, I'm still wearing them. I think I got them on today. I never took them off.
I'm definitely wearing mine.
I'm wearing mine as well, and I'm 6'8".
Yeah.
And it's hard to find pants that fit, and mountain khakis fit so good. They're stretchy.
They got this magic blend. It's very important on older fellas. The podcast is brought to you by Mountain Khakis. Hey, it's Mike Whiteside.
I'm Robert Kulp.
And I'm Tay Whiteside.
And welcome back to the Black Dog Salvage podcast.
You
again.
know it.
Yeah, man.
Here we are. You know, of course, it's the podcast where every week we talk to the most interesting people we can find from the salvage maker and creator worlds. We give you a tip on salvage to help you turn your trash into treasures. And finally, we'll give you some behind the scenes, the single from the 11 seasons of our hit TV show, Salvage Dawgs. Guys, it was a hit. Did you know that?
Yeah. I mean, you know, like it only took us 21 years to get.
What is the scenes of a single?
I don't know.
What does that mean?
It was poorly written in my script.
We need to get you a new writer.
Why don't you try that one again and just skip that part that Jason put in there? Because that is some crap. I don't know what that is.
I think in here they're referring to one of the episodes as a single.
A hit single?
As if we were musical artists.
Yeah. And we are.
It came out on a 45.
Yeah. Spinning a little too fast.
Yeah.
Spinning platters.
Yeah. We sound better at a higher RPM.
Because they get through it a little faster.
Right.
All right. Steve's going like, what the hell's going on here?
I can say that. Unfortunately, I was saying, you guys probably would sound better at a higher RPM.
Yeah.
And you just it's like the Cliff Notes. You know. Can you just cut to the end, please? Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's get to the Reader's Digest version of this thing and finish it up.
And on today's episode, we'll be talking to Steve Thomas, author, adventurer, sailor, preservationist, TV producer, documentarian, host, and my favorite part, builder.
Ooh, geez.
What a resume.
Yeah, once we get that conversation going, we're going to pick Steve's brain and get his help on the DIY top tip, where he'll be share some expertise and maybe be able to use at home or in life.
Is that legal?
Is he going to charge us for that?
Pick his brain?
Don't bring up payment.
Oh, he is now.
We are not going to bring up payment.
Okay.
Finally, we're going to go give you some behind the scenes from one episode of our show, Salvage Dawgs. And this time, it's episode 909, the Grotto's gas station and country store, one of my favorites. And I like that there's some connections here with some of the things that Steve has done in his past. So just after the break, Steve Thomas. Yeah, I want to take a minute to talk about Keen utility footwear, people.
Floor's yours.
I'm talking about, safe, solid, comfortable.
Tell us what you really think,
A
Robert.
working man's footwear.
Yeah.
Men's and women's too.
You know, there's a lot of competition out there for safety footwear, but this one rises above.
I've always been partial to the Keen stuff.
You know, if I was going to drop something on my foot, I want to be wearing Keens.
Well, I assure you, if you're going to drop something on your foot, you want that composite toe, you want that steel toe that the Keen utility offers. And if you've ever watched our television show, you know that stuff happens all the time.
Yeah.
So,
and you've seen us wearing Keen.
Absolutely.
We've never gone to the hospital, though.
I'm not limping.
Probably should have.
That's Keen utility footwear.
That's right. That's what it is. And it's the best stuff out there. We love Keen utility.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Black Dog Salvage podcast. Today, we're talking with Emmy Award-winning television host, Steve Thomas. Steve, thank you so much for joining.
Oh, sorry.
Is that you got an email? Did your Kubota tractor sale over there?
That's your cue.
I'm in the hunt for a new skid steer. You can't get one.
I just thought you were well edited with a nice intro. That's what I thought that was.
I thought he was going to just stay silent until I give him a better intro.
Yeah.
I think there's some entry where everybody gets their own bells.
Do you want some chimes?
And there you are. This is his
That's
signal.
too advanced.
This is a text you never get. So one of the guys who does excavation for me is actually, I think, offering me his 75, his brand,
which is
to buy
the excavator you can't buy right now.
That's
right?
the skid steer you can't buy right now. It's the smaller one than the 97. Normally, you just walk out and buy a $100,000 machine, no problem. You just pull out your credit card and say, "Here."
Sure, it's just money.
Can't we all?
Yeah,
I got some stimulus money left.
Don't we all?
No.
What am I going to do with it?
But I could use some more.
Your stimmies.
Whoa.
Your skid steer sold. That's what that sound was.
Steve, we're looking for sponsors, by the way.
Well, you're looking in the wrong direction. I'm looking for a sponsor, too. I thought you guys all married well. What happened to you?
Yeah. I'm going to marry Kubota.
That was the wrong dossier you got on us.
Yeah. Maybe you guys have some insights on this.
You give us too much credit.
Yeah. He's had quite a bit of trouble, I think, with the computer part. He says the 75s are ironclad, but you can't get a 75.
Stay away from computers.
Well, they had a problem with a sensor on the DEF tank, and apparently
Of course they do.
These is tracked, right? Rubber track?
Yeah.
Is it rubber track? Yeah.
Do you guys want to hear any of this, Jason? I mean,
yes.
Jason doesn't, but we do. Yeah.
That's right.
absolutely. So the thing is, I mean, this is topical. So decisions are now being driven by what you can actually get.
Yeah.
Right. I can't get a 75 right now. Just forget it.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy's got a 97 sitting on the lot. And I said, what would it take for me to reserve it? He said, done.
Nice.
And my client says he's going to buy it. I said, I can buy it. I don't want to for $76,990 with a $3,000 rebate if you don't finance it. But wait, there's more. There's more. If you buy the forks at the same time, you get a $500 rebate.
And you got to buy the forks.
Oh, yeah.
You got to
Well,
keep
that's
the
why I'm
forks.
buying the machine. That's why I want the machine.
Yeah. You got to keep the forks with the machine.
You can't afford not to get it.
I just looked this thing up. It's a mean looking machine, Steve.
It is.
For some reason, my guys always want to separate the forks or the bucket from the machine when it travels around. So it takes, I'd say if you load the skid steer on the trailer, then you need to load all the accessories with it before you take it somewhere.
Well, it's so much effort to put the forks in the bucket.
You having labor problems, Steve?
That's a subject I wanted to touch on.
There's no labor. I mean, that's part of the reason. What's interesting is that you say, geez, that's a lot of money. But on a 3-year project on an island, so you turn around and sell the machine. You buy a brand new machine. You take care of it. And you turn around and sell it at the end. I mean, Kubotas are pretty bulletproof and they have a really good resale market. But you start to figure if you could get an extra guy or two, what that would cost you. And it's way less than what the machine's going to cost you. I mean, that's the justification for a lull. I just can't get a lull on the job site.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Any piece of machinery, when you start to count it against the labor that you can't get, by the way, then it pays for itself.
Well, Elon's going to take care of us. There's going to be some robot excavators real soon, if not already. Just program it.
Well, if they're as good as the self-driving cars, we're in great shape.
We're going to try them out on an island first in Maine.
Well, a drone, a right-sized drone would probably solve this problem.
That would be a Sikorsky heavy lift.
Heavy lift drone, right?
Sikorsky. I was trying to think of that brand name.
That's a big grasshopper looking thing.
The dual rotor one.
No, that's
Steve,
a 40. That's H46.
Sorry, Steve. I was thinking about this while we're on this subject. It's the remote building, and as well as having problems with logistics and getting materials. It's almost a throwback to ages where you had to do a lot more planning before you had cell phones, and you had to do a lot more planning when you had to, order up that trim and mantle from someplace up in Chicago, and they put it on a train and get it to the job site at the right time.
Right.
Maybe we're just going backwards. Maybe we're finding out what it really was.
Because I just finished a door surround, a big fancy door surround for a house that was originally built in 1925. And I built it all out of Akoya. It was all shop work. I ran all the moldings. With Akoya, you have to glue it with West System or epoxy. And so
Akoya, right.
Yeah, it's acetyllized radiata pine. Radiata pine is garbage, but they grow it on plantations in Chile and New Zealand.
Sustainable then.
And they ship it to, and the really sustainable part is they ship it all to the Netherlands.
There's no carbon footprint there.
on big container ships that now don't go anywhere.
And it's working perfectly.
And they got stuck in the Suez Canal for a while. And when they finally get to the Netherlands, they dry it to like a really low moisture content, and then they put it in what they call a reactor vessel, which looks like a big, pressure vessel. And they inject it with, wait,
Hold on.
The booster.
Drum roll, please.
3 boosters.
I got it. Where is it? Acetic anhydride.
That's delicious.
Sounds healthy.
And sustainable.
Yeah, well, it's vinegar, basically.
Well, there you go.
Now we know what to call vinegar. Aceta what?
They pickle it.
Yeah,
they
it pickles
pickle
it. So the structure of the cell walls remains, and it displaces the water and the starch. So without that, mold doesn't grow.
Right. It will not rot.
Oh, cool.
And when you mill it, it smells like vinegar.
And that's why wood glue doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's usually moisture reacted.
Sure.
Yeah. There's no moisture.
That sounds like a pretty extravagant door you're building.
And it seems like it'd be much smarter to shop at a salvage yard for one of those things, don't you think?
Well, it would be if you guys had the right one.
Yeah. Oh.
You want it all covered with lead paint, right? You only sell stuff that's covered with lead paint.
That's not extra.
We don't charge any extra for the lead.
We probably should. We got to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more Steve Thomas. The Leatherman multi-tool. It's the multiest of multi-tools.
It's the perfect tool.
Perfect size, perfect feel. The knives are sharp, at least before you use them as a pry bar.
Yeah.
Just saying, it's put up with a lot that you've had to deal out, and it keeps coming back for more. I've seen you guys use Leathermans in ways that I don't even think their marketing department has thought of. But
we are kind of their R&D.
Yeah.
A charcuterie board. Yes.
You can open a beer. You can cut cheese. You can
butcher a hog. I mean, whatever
take
you
apart,
need.
But,
you're going to drop me on a deserted island.
Yeah.
And they give you the one tool, maybe that survivor thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I want that.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Because even there's one, you could cut a tree down with one of these things.
You can trim your nails with it. I mean, if you're really, out there in the wild.
I've seen you do it.
Yeah.
But you can fix a lot of things. And, the funny thing is when I researched finally about the Leatherman, the guy who invented it.
Tim?
Yeah. Tim Leatherman.
Yeah.
He was going through Europe and he needed a tool to fix his car. He was in an old car and he just needed something. He kept running into it, but he always needed a pair of pliers. And that was the beginning of the thought of the Leatherman. And that's come into play. And thank goodness, because it's been good to us.
Leatherman.
All right, everyone, and welcome back to the Black Dog Salvage podcast.
We were talking off the air about how COVID and the shortage and the just in no time shipping, global shipping management have changed the way we think about building and renovating and everything else. And for me, anyway, it's now faster and cheaper to fabricate stuff myself. I have a pretty good shop. I don't have a 5-axis CNC machine like some of my friends. But,
well, use theirs. Yeah.
I know. No, it's down the street. But,
hire local.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is. When I said that, it is hiring local. I mean, that's a big movement because you can't get it anywhere else.
You can't get it anywhere else. And it's, in a renovation situation, it's probably faster, cheaper, definitely more satisfying to fabricate it.
Or salvage yard. Yeah.
Or get it at a salvage yard.
So, yeah.
Robert, you tossed it up. Here we go. I know you used salvage materials before in your show. This old house. Y'all used a lot of reuse, as I remember, right?
So,
or was that just Hollywood?
I mean, the thing with salvage, if you can find cool pieces, you can design around them. But if you're in a restoration situation where you're having to reproduce what's already there, you can't really go do the salvage thing. I mean, think about sinks, and there's a lot of cool stuff out there.
I think we need to change the subject now that he's saying you can't use salvage all the time.
Well, you can't.
Oh, I think the way to think about salvage is not as salvage, but as unique pieces that have a provenance that you can design around.
Absolutely.
Probably what most people coming into your yard, they're not looking to reproduce a piece of historic molding. They're looking to, find something really cool to, design a room around or a bathroom around or a powder room around or something like that.
Yeah, they're key pieces for sure. That's what I say all day long, or take a piece of something and then say, hey, we can build this table out of it, or we can build this console.
Or you can design this addition around this.
Right.
But if they come to you at the end of the process, it's usually too late for salvage.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
it's just a bigger challenge for your wallet. That's
well,
right.
Are you guys finding stuff to salvage?
Yeah, we finished our show with Salvage Dawgs about a year and a half ago.
Yep.
And of course,
only a year and a half ago?
Yeah, we took a little respite, because the bones were weary and you got tired of a camera sticking at you.
Mm-hmm.
Not terribly tired. Bobby, our producer, was our producer.
Sorry, Bobby.
Sorry, we threw you under the bus, buddy.
Well, Dad, you had almost fallen off a roof a lot, so we didn't want to actually fall off.
Yeah, but the pipeline, we always say there's so much salvage in so little time.
Yeah.
There's a lot out there. Not all of it's worth saving, but you got to go through all that. You got to sift through it. And we still get lots of calls from people all over the country saying, hey, we got this. And, somewhere in there's a diamond that needs to be approached. And if
is most of it junk?
Most of it's junk, yes.
Well, there's a place for it. Well, there's more salvage, I always say, laying on the ground in attics or basements or barns than we can do in a lifetime. We get calls every day, especially with the older generations, passing their estates through. Our parents were hoarders.
Yeah. Well, now Mike and I are hoarders.
No. We turned hoarding into a business. That's what I always say.
To get to your point, there is a huge amount of salvage still out there. There always will be. It's just kind of a grade of, when things come of age to be salvaged, it's always that constant argument between preservation or the question of, as a salvage guy, encouraging buildings to be torn down, which is where Mike and I are only in this business because...
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, we're only in this business because we loved old things and didn't want to see them go to the landfill. So we're the last best hope for a lot of these parts that we do save. My choice is to leave it in place.
That way we don't have to do the work then.
Well, that's exactly right.
But what I'm hearing now is they're getting a lot of tools. Somebody who... Oh, yeah. This is a woman who... does downsizing. She helps people simplify their lives. And
damn, what's her name?
Yeah, you got a number.
Can you send them their number afterwards?
Yeah. Send it. Put it in the show notes. Will you? Yeah.
And she said that. So what's happening is that the kids, the millennials,
sure, present.
Yeah, well, you're different because you do want to shop. But she said, what do we do with tools? Because these guys are aging, older couples are aging out of their house and they want to downsize. And, the guy's got a really substantial shop and said, what do I do with the tools? But, you've got a generation of kids who don't want stuff. They don't want their parents' stuff. They don't even want to own a car. They want to own one of these things and call Uber. They don't want to. Yeah. It's an interesting, from our point of view as builders and salvers and, people who live in the world of the built environment, what do you do? What is coming next? We'll be dead by then, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I got it from here, guys.
Yeah. We're going to hand out.
We'll figure it out.
Well, the antique market, the destruction of the antique market or an implosion of the antique market is because of that, because nobody's interested in that stuff.
Oh, did the antique market implode?
Yeah, there's the values of all, true antique furniture, and it's just...
everybody wants to paint furniture, so we have our own line of paint. Right? Guess what it's called? Black Dog Salvage. Furniture paint.
Yeah.
He almost forgot.
We're going to come out with the stripper here. In about 10 years, we're going to come out with the stripper for it.
Yeah.
So we get them going and coming. Yeah.
You want to find this massive, cheap warehouse where you can store all these great things that one of these days, maybe your kids or your grandkids are going to make a mint because it will change.
That's where the hoarding comes in. That's a perfect example.
Selective hoarding.
Of a hoarding.
Well, that's got to be one of the economic issues of your business is you need a warehouse to store all this crap in. Mm-hmm. It's good crap, but it's crap.
Yeah,
it's crap buys it.
It's crap. It's crap that takes up a lot of room.
It's time to go to a commercial break here. I thought that was opportune.
These guys, they look really uncomfortable when you sort of bear down and get at the truth of it. They're like, wow.
Okay. Were they starting to squirm, Steve? Were they?
Yeah, we don't actually want this guy on our show anymore.
My therapist is going to have a field day with this.
Well, I have
not that I have one.
I have a question relative to something you said earlier.
Change the subject. I give you credit.
Segue.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, where it's actually now more time efficient and sometimes cheaper to get something made by a fabricator or a carpenter than to be able to find these materials for building and renovating. Which, as a custom fabricator, and we're all builders here, that's so uncommon. forever. I feel like it's always been like you had to convince someone why they need to invest in you as a builder because it's going to last longer. It's built better. It looks better. It's more impressive. Now, I just thought that was an interesting point.
Well, I do. I mean, a lot of the work I do is for clients who have already own or are building legacy houses. And they're willing to pay, but only once.
What's a legacy house?
That means your kids and your grandkids and everything. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Okay.
He doesn't know anything about that.
I guess I am his legacy.
You are the legacy.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Steve. I'm very proud of my work so far.
They're willing to pay. They just want to pay once, and they want quality. They want somebody who they trust to build it, and who's going to be honest with them. And they want integrity, simplicity, and sustainability, basically.
Right. Your core values, as a matter of fact.
My core values.
I like people with core values. I like it. I wish I had my own core values. Think I'm coreless.
You can use Steve's. It's okay.
I've already written it down. I know where it is, and I'm going to steal it.
Feel free to rip it off. I would be
absolutely. I mean, it really is good for a builder, for a building person. That is just it goes a long way, and you can. I mean, it's a good marketing campaign too, even if it is true.
For sure.
So, and it is. That is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were talking about all these tools and who's not using them. And we're finding that same problem here with the salvage. And the tools themselves, it's part of the trades that we're losing. And, I know I listen to Micro a lot and about Micro Works, and Tay's a big advocate of the trades. And that's just what we're losing. We just don't have anybody that's, like you say, they want to pick up a cell phone and use their 3D printer to build a hamburger.
Which will be possible very soon. Yes.
Well, that's that impossible meat.
Right.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's nobody wants the tools, and nobody wants to learn how to use the tools either. So that's
that's really when us old dinosaurs and Tay becomes an elder in the society, what's going to happen there? Again, this is a huge transition of the artisans are being lost.
Well, they are and they're not. I mean, I always think, so I live in Maine, and the boat building industry is huge here. And it's transitioned from plank on frame to carbon fiber, mm-hmm. And so it's highly technical now. A lot of epoxy systems, pre-preg, has to be autoclaved at a certain temperature, vacuum bagged, all this stuff. I mean, basically, It's the aerospace industry. It's as sophisticated as aerospace. It's like building a 888 wing or a 888 fuselage, but it's a racing boat So there are people here that are highly skilled. Man, try to hire a carpenter. The guy that works with me, I had two really, really, really good guys working with me. And, one of them went back to work with his brother building, $30 million houses in New Hampshire on Lake Winnipesaukee. I don't blame him. He can run a crew of 30 guys and not have to, kill his back. And the other guy went out and started a business installing windows. And I don't mean installing windows, but I mean nano walls and tilt slide. Right. And, these are houses with $400,000 window packages, and he's killing it. So, if they're really good, they're not going to, unless they want to work for Steve Thomas Builders and take it over. You're lucky that, you've got a son that wants to take it over, because most people don't.
Did you hear that, Tay? You're supposed to take this over.
Well, one of the things I was going to ask you is, as your company, Steve Thomas Builders, where do you find the people? And then obviously you're having the same problem that I'm having in my construction business. And
so we borrow from each other. You probably do the same thing. I call up, another builder friend of mine, say, what are you doing next summer? So I don't know, what do you got going? Because I always have interesting projects. And I said, can you, okay, I just had this phone call, this week. I said, pencil in next summer. We all help each other out. I'll get a call. What are you doing next week? I said, what do you want me to do? I'm working, but what do you need? So I really need your help. Okay. Tell me where to go.
I need your Kubota excavator as well.
Yeah. Well, there's much more to discuss, gentlemen, about building, but we got to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more Steve Thomas.
I'm working on a 75 here. Hold on.
We got to hear
75-year-old. Okay, that's good.
No.
Oh, you meant the Kubota, right?
United Rentals. Now I'm saying it. Now I'm saying it because I said
Rentals.
it. Rentals. United Rentals. United Rentals, they were really there for us. I mean, we couldn't have done what we did in the field without being able to rent equipment, extendable reach forklifts, and bobcats.
Yeah. The right equipment for the job. And we put their equipment through the paces.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we really pushed. I did anyway. That's why they wouldn't put me in the cab because, I'm an analog brain with no digital capabilities.
Well, you'd be out. You would do the jobs that like no one was around. If something needed to be knocked down, we'd be like, go for it.
Yeah. That's what I do. The qualified driver, Tay, got to sit in the weatherproof cab while the rest of us were out there dangling in the elements.
Yeah.
But these guys delivered.
I tried to make it less obvious that I was sitting in the heat.
We didn't, we didn't want a lawsuit.
I think when I got out and I was steaming, though, it was probably a giveaway.
United Rentals was there. Is that what you're saying?
That's the point. Yeah. And their equipment has great air conditioning. No.
United Rentals.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Black Dog Salvage podcast. We are talking with Steve Thomas. Steve, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that most people probably know you from the various TV shows you hosted, one of which, obviously, This Old House, and then Renovation Nation afterwards.
Oh, what's funny? I'm used to it now, but, I'd be someplace and, this really cute young woman would say, "Oh, you're Steve Thomas." And I'd think, "Oh, yes, I am." And then say, "I used to watch you with my dad."
or grandfather.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, right.
I'm thinking, I'm probably older than him, too.
Yeah.
Well, tell him hi for me.
Yeah.
Did you like a hat?
When I was doing Renovation Nation, this was funny. I was skiing with a friend of mine, and we went into this, big tent, kind of hospitality tent thing, get a cup of coffee, walk in, and two separate tables. And one table says, "Hey, Steve Thomas. Hey, I love your show." And I said, "Which one?" And they said, "This Old House." And then the other table is all younger people.
Nice.
And they said, "We love your show. We love Renovation Nation. That rocks." So I was like, wow, this is really cool. Because you got,
cool.
This whole younger generation watching Renovation Nation.
Yeah.
And obviously the older generation is, This Old House.
Can I ask you a quick question about that? How in the hell did you do 50 episodes of that in one season? Good Lord. I mean, that's brutal.
Oh, it's killer. See the gray hair I got?
This is for Renovation or this
Renovation Nation, yeah.
Okay.
We would shoot for, I don't know, Jason, you remember the rules? Yeah, you can work it's either 7 or 9 days. Yeah, and then you have to take a break. But they figured out that they would break the crew, but then I would do voiceovers on the day, on my break day. So you'd be in Denver and they say, "Hey, we've got a studio. We booked a studio." So, but, you can't just read their script. So I'd have to rewrite their script. Because it's
yeah, we know how that is.
Yeah.
We see this, this crap we're looking at.
Steve, how'd you get into all that?
Well, my dad used to buy, renovate, and sell houses. This was back when you could buy a house for $20,000. So it was after the war. Everybody came back from the war and started having kids. I was the first of 6. And you could get an FHA loan or a veterans loan. And so he would buy these houses and fix them up. And then he'd have another kid or two, and then he'd need a bigger house. So he'd buy a bigger house and fix that one up. And he'd have another kid or two and fix that one up. So it's just, my early memories are being down in the crawl space with my dad. And he was not a professional renovator. He was like a lot of people back then. It's just, you get in and get the job done. You figure out how to do it. And so, I'd be down in the crawl space with him. That it was this was in California. This was in Berkeley. It was an open crawl space house that he bought and had termite-infested sills.
Wow, it's terrible.
Your Kubota sold.
That's right.
Missed opportunity.
They want a counteroffer.
That was the last one. The last one in lower 48.
They have them on home shopping this week.
It's Monica from your warranty on your truck.
Yes.
Your last chance. We're going to take you off the list.
Your warranty on your skid steer that you haven't bought yet is now lapsed.
So, all the dogs in town had been using the crawl space for their private moments. And, that's where I learned, I heard my father use 4-letter words. And so I associated, building and renovation with 4-letter words. And I was hooked after that.
And you still decided you wanted to be a builder. It's
no, it's the deep satisfaction of doing something with your own hands. I mean, we all experience that at the end of the day, whether you're in the shop, doing an Akoya door surround that's, really delicate work, or you've, jacked a house up and put it back on its foundation, whatever it is. I mean,
it's awesome, isn't it?
I like thinking about it. I like the logistics. I love the people in the industry. That's, they're just by and large, just great people. It's a great community. And, if it's new construction and it's an interesting design, then, I can see it. I mean, I was out on a job site the other day on an island. It's going to be probably a 3-year project. It's a really challenging, logistically very challenging. Yeah. And I was out there with the clients and starting to lay out the building. Not in any, I didn't have a total station or anything else. I wasn't like laying it out to pour foundations, just to get a sense of where they wanted the house. And I turned to her and I said, "This is my favorite moment." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because it doesn't exist right now. It's on a piece of paper and it's in a, in a CAD file, but it doesn't exist. And we are watching it being born right now. And in 2 years or 3 years, it will exist. It will be there in 3 dimensions, and I can see it."
It's magical.
I mean, one of the curses and the blessings, the way my mind works, and I bet your guys' minds, is that you can see it in 3 dimensions. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I build whatever I'm going to do that day. I build it in my head.
Yeah.
It's really messed up. Most people are thinking about,
I got medication that takes care of that.
Dad's the exact same way. And I think you'll agree the hard part is trying to get that vision out of your head
and into somebody else's hands. That you can't do it all
remember
yourself.
The TV when you turn it off at night and you get that gray fuzz? That's what my brain looks like when I shut it off. It's just, I don't even get the little patterns, that they used to put up there and the color schemes.
Yeah, but you get all that satisfaction from it being born and watching it, grow and all those great things. But at the end of the day, it's just like, parenthood. It's just like, when the kid leaves the house and you send them off to college or get them their first job and they're off their payroll, it's like, you want to see them, but you don't want to see them every day. And because you're exhausted. It's exhausting. A 3-year build project is something where you'll look back, and there's very few of the builds that I've done. There's 1 or 2 where I really love it at the end. Most of the time it's like, well, I could have done a little bit better here. I could have done a little bit better there. But when you find that one that you go, I'd like to go back there and stay. That's
no, it's true. I mean, by the end of the project, you really just, kind of like, okay, I got to wrap this thing up. But, you're down to the punch list, and the punch list keeps getting longer. And it's like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a child, but a divorce. Is that what it is? It's a marriage where you've just, the love is gone?
Which it can be good.
I think for us, once you've solved a lot of the problems, so that moment when you can see the house, you've got the plans, and then you're starting to lay it out and thinking, okay, how am I going to build this? How am I going to get the materials to the island? What kind of a foundation system can I mean, for me, you can't just call up the transit truck and have him bring 4 yards. I mean, you got to mix and pour, you got to put it in bags. It's really, really involved.
I can imagine.
And so you solve all those problems. And then at some point you've solved the problems, then it's just executing. It's like, okay, I'm bored with this now. Let's just get it done.
I don't have to think anymore.
Where's my stunt double?
At least you can sleep if you just get past that one. But there's a new problem, always a new problem, or the next job. And it's, that's why you're talking about passion, having a passion for what you do and having a job that can provide you something to be passionate about. And I love building because of that.
Well, so that same thing, that same process, that same, for me anyway, is true whether it's preservation and restoration, or, what I call sympathetic renovation restoration, or new construction. Because that same ability, or that same, whether it's a blessing or a curse, to see the building, you're looking at a wreck and you can see the restored building in the wreck. You can picture it. I mean, that's what keeps us all going to be honest with you. I mean, that's really the fun of it.
That's the creative.
Yeah.
And the money. That does keep you going as well, too.
Greases the gears. Yeah.
Even if it's one of those things where I've put myself in corners on restoration jobs where, hey, this, from an economic sense, this does not make good business. but sometimes you got to push through.
Is that halfway through it? Did you figure that out?
You're not fixed pricing restoration projects, are you?
Well, a lot of them, they might be my projects, and that's one of those things where, you know where it's hitting, and it's like, but you got to make those decisions where it's not going to make you, it's going to pain you every time you drive by or, think about it. It's like, man, that was...
Y'all are painting such a pretty picture here.
Yeah. This is why the next generation doesn't want to be a builder.
So I've been instructed by your producer to talk about preservation. And since you guys have not made the transition, I will do it for you. I gave you the big softball, but no, you didn't pick that one. You went right on to the next subject.
I'm slow on the uptake.
We need cue cards, please. Cue cards.
Well, new construction has its own challenges, obviously, and especially when you're being sympathetic. Materials and the footprint. But your strong suit, as we've been told, Steve, is preservation. That's a whole kind of different world.
So let me give you here's my cliff notes on preservation. Human history, to be compelling, is told in narratives and stories. And stories are powerful, but they're even more powerful when they're associated with a three-dimensional environment. I mean, when you can walk around Boston and go to the birthplace of various events in our nation's history, that makes those stories all the more powerful. I mean, we did a story for the History Channel on, Mount Vernon, and to stand there, where Washington stood, realizing that during the siege of Boston, just to get his mind off the fact that the British had him surrounded and they were going to slaughter him, he was renovating his house in Mount Vernon. So he would write these long letters to his brother, who was doing the renovation project, instructing him. And there was an exercise, back in the Age of Enlightenment, where men of enlightenment, and probably women too, would picture every detail in their houses. The association, when you can map stories on top of the built environment, they become history. They become powerful. They become...
Well, they're alive. They're telling that story.
They're alive. That to me is the strongest argument for preservation. People say, well, why should we, it's old. It's his, why should we do that?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the three-dimensional environment, you can't tell the stories.
Or they have less weight. Sure.
That's my take on it. So the last old house that I owned, really old house that I owned, was 1700s, the Greek Revival. And it was moved to the site in 1836 and re-erected. They used to move houses around because it was, sawn lumber was expensive. So they would move stuff around and recombine it and do all kinds of stuff. And I took pieces of the house apart, and each post and beam and brace was hand lettered in ink. And you look at the joinery work and you think, whoever did this knew that it was going to be covered because you plastered it back then. They knew that it was going to be covered, and it was going to be, I don't know, hundreds of years before somebody uncovered it. But when that person uncovered it, they would look at the work and say, all right, this guy had integrity. This guy was a carpenter with integrity. You do the right thing, whether you can see it or not.
So it transcends time. It transcends.
I mean, you guys must encounter that in the salvage world.
We see it a lot.
You take some piece and look how beautifully it was built and say, all right, somebody really cared.
We're in the salvage business, and they've been salvaging a long time because you go into structures, barns, and whatever. Well, this is second, third time this beam's been used. For whatever it was.
Corn crib that
the corn crib we got right now.
Yeah.
It's people look at it going like, what's that hole for? Well, that was on another reuse in some cabin somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that house. I guess it was the first period colonial that you owned, and that movement of it. The house, Mike, we were in Pawleys Island, South Carolina, and some friends of ours owned this beachfront home, and it was built in about 1740 on a plantation inland, and in the mid 1830s or 40s, it was packed up, taken apart, and then moved right to the beach ocean front as a summer house. And I always thought that was just. I got to stay in that house several times, and I just looking around at it and seeing that and the care that, and it's basically the salvage work. It's like somebody's thought enough of this work that somebody else did that they wanted to save it and move it to another place. And even if you took it apart and used the parts in something completely different, it kind of backs up the justification I always think about when people give me the argument like, oh, you're encouraging things to be torn down. I'm like, absolutely not. We are the last best hope for a lot of this stuff because it is going to go to the landfill. And do you ever run into that, in your preservation life is, these people that are like the purist in everything, whether it's politics, government, whatever, building preservation is, can do a lot of damage just being so hardcore.
Well, that's a good point, actually, because, buildings are living things. And, I used to live in Salem, Massachusetts, which is a historic town. Much of the town is in a historic district. And the historic guidelines are pretty strict. For example, you couldn't switch out the single pane windows for insulated windows, even if they looked exactly the same, had the same mutton pattern and anything, and everything else. You could put triple track storm windows on top of them, but you couldn't switch them out.
That's so backwards.
That's some fenestration there.
To preserve a building, it has to evolve and continue to serve the needs of the people who are using it. So when I did this house here, I fell in love with it. So it's on the website. We call it Seacoast Cottage. We had to come up with a name because we were renting it at one point. And, I fell in love with it and decided, okay, I'm in. I'm all in. I'm going to do it right. And so I put new windows in, but I had them reproduce the mutton patterns. Some of them were off. They weren't exactly right, but I kept the openings in the same place. I kept all the projections. I kept the footprint. I kept, the flares on the second story. I kept as much of the exterior molding as I possibly could. It's basically the same house, and ended up gutting it on the inside, but kept the rooms, restored the original flow of a lot of it. It's all bird's eye maple on the first floor. And interesting story there. So every lobsterman in town would come by and said, glad to see you're fixing up the old house. I used to live here. And it turned out every lobsterman in town lived here.
It wasn't a brothel, was it?
It was a boarding house. And
there you go.
Started with a B.
So I said, I asked one of the guys, said, where did the maple come from? He said, there's an interesting story there. They used to ship all the wood up from the south. So southern yellow pine and maple and other stuff, from Savannah and the big ports in the south. And the wood would get shipped as deck cargo. And deck cargo was uninsured and uninsurable. And so in storms, it would fall off. And it just happened to fall off and end up in the living room here.
Is that flotsam or jetsam? I can't remember.
Yeah, that's a good day is what that is, yeah.
I mean, it takes a long time. The house is really, it really lives well. My wife, who has been through many renovations, she would come home from work. She used to work in Boston, and she'd come home and say, okay, where's the bathroom today?
It's that bucket over there, honey.
I never got that bad, but still, so this is the best house that you've done. I love this house. So, all of that stuff kind of adds up to this sense of well-being that most people, you guys and I can pick it apart. We can crack the code. What makes this house comfortable? But the sense of history and the sense of living in a place that has roots and provenance that's still real is part of what makes human beings comfortable, I think. So, that is another argument for preservation.
Yeah. It has to do with our place. Yeah. We all want to be, in a comfortable place. And that's part of the community. And what you're doing is in your restoration, it's giving back to the community.
Yeah, and keeping a place, making places and keeping
your place, and making everybody else want your place.
Well, I think we all want our place, don't we, fellas?
I think we got it.
Well, we're going to talk to Steve a little bit longer, but we got to take a quick break. See you back. Big Tex trailers are, they're one of the best trailer companies out there. And we have two of them, and we beat the crap out of them within reason. And
no, we beat the crap out of them.
Sometimes out of reason.
We're out there and just not intentional. It's just the nature of the job.
But it was the cornerstone of Like that was our way home. Was if we just get it on the trailer, we can go home.
Yeah, and we would always put the work order together and going like you would have the Chevy truck and the flatbed Big Tex.
That's right.
You know, so you knew
that was a unit.
That was a unit. That was a very utilitarian unit because you can do pretty much anything with it.
That's right. We would load them up. We'd haul stuff cross country with them. Bright lights, easy to use, good quality. I mean, they're heavy duty.
Yeah, you know, I've always overloaded my trailers.
Well, I was going to say, we have done some loading on them that wasn't recommended, and they put up with it. The State Patrol did not put up with it.
I didn't know that it wasn't recommended.
Yeah.
I think anything that you can get home with and it doesn't kill anybody should be okay.
Well, there you go. Big Tex trailers.
That's how we got all this salvage. No one was harmed in the making of this commercial.
Big Tex trailers really been there for us.
Steve gets settled. All right. Oh, is that your dog? Yeah.
I love that.
That's what do you hear in the background here?
Is somebody nipping at your ankle, Steve?
Could be your music, Steve.
All right, and welcome back. Welcome back to the Black Dog Salvage podcast. We're here with Steve Thomas, and Steve's with his dog.
And the dog fight. And a dog fight.
Steve, we're back with you.
That was hilarious.
There's a part of our show where we ask our guests if they have a DIY top tip for not only the people at home, but for us. It could be salvage related, building related, but something we can take home. Do you have any good tips?
Well, it's kind of a guiding philosophy. So people always want to know about costs when it comes to new building or renovation, you know, all aspects of it. So, you know, I like to talk about 3 buckets of costs. There's materials, workmanship, and features. So materials, you don't want to compromise on. You know, you have to have the absolute best quality materials that you can put in your building. You put in crummy materials, then the building's going to fall apart. So you can't compromise on that. Although you can trade out some materials, right? And that sort of gets into the features part of it. And then there's workmanship. That's your build quality. You don't want to compromise on that either, because crappy workmanship means a crappy build and the thing falls apart or leaks or whatever. Craftsmanship is probably the most important component of your build or your renovation, whatever it is. And I like to tell people the least expensive carpenter you can hire will cost you the most per hour.
In the end.
So true.
Words live by, everybody.
And then there's features. And this is what people don't want to hear. They don't want to hear that they can't save money by buying cheaper materials, or they can't save money by getting cheaper labor. They can save money by reducing the number of features in their project. So that could be anything from the infinity pool to the crown molding to the Uber refrigerator. It could be downsizing the size of the house. It could be, substituting simpler materials like a concrete floor, for example. Polished concrete makes a great floor. It's a fraction of the cost of marble. So marble would be a feature. Concrete would be a high quality material that's of lower cost. So when you think of the 3, the things that have guided my work and, our work, integrity, simplicity, and sustainability, they are tied directly back to materials, workmanship, and features. So the 2 can be mapped onto each other.
Oh, wow. I hope everybody paid attention to that, because that's going to save you some money.
Well, we deal with it in the business all the time.
It's education.
You can't build for less than, there's no way you can build for less than $400 a square foot. It's garbage. If somebody says, oh yeah, I can do it for $250, you can't. There's not a chance.
So it's more
like, for high quality stuff, it's $550,
True.
$600 a square foot. Don't build a big house.
Yeah. Or don't build on an island, because that'll jack it up even more, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to ask how much it costs when you build on an island.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we promised to bring you the most interesting people.
That's right.
And I think we've accomplished that today.
Yeah.
Way to go, Tay. Way to go, Mike. Oh, hey. Steve, you're the guy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, thanks. It's been a lot of fun. Let's do it again.
We
Absolutely.
will definitely have to put you on the rotation.
Yeah, when you get your sailboat down this way, let me know.
Yeah.
We got to come up and see you guys in the spring.
Well, I'm going to need some workforce, so bring your tools.
By the way, I just heard the Kubota call again.
Yeah, no wonder. It's probably my wife saying it's cocktail hour.
Well, Steve, I know you got a Kubota skid steer you got to get back to. Have they called you back yet? You got.
Let me see if so. My landscaper.
Hey, Steve, if it comes to be a problem, just give us your Venmo account or PayPal, and we'll back you up, buddy.
But we got a boogie, so it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for doing it.
Well, you're very welcome.
We're taking your top tip home with us.
Yeah.
And good luck in Maine.
Yeah, thanks.
Enjoy yourself.
Drink a bourbon.
Bye now. This episode of the Black Dog Salvage podcast is brought to you by the Stone House at Black Dog Salvage.
And what is that?
Well, it's a luxury vacation rental property that Black Dog and Blue Ridge Residential has renovated. It's a 1911, built in 1911 on the outside. And on the inside, it looks period, but it's been refreshed, modernized, redone. It's a showcase for salvage. It's a showcase for what Black Dog Salvage can do. And there's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths.
Nope.
3 baths.
3 baths. 3.5 baths.
3.5 baths.
They keep going up, people. They keep going up.
Stop them.
And you know, one of the coolest things,
kitchen.
it's got a great connection to Black Dog Salvage, obviously, not just physically, but also we're right there. The shop was right there. It created most of the things inside the Stone House. And Salvage Dawgs was filmed inside the Stone House for many years.
For you super fans out there.
Absolutely. And you can come stay where Salvage Dawgs was filmed.
You know, and for a little extra, Robert will deliver breakfast to you. Think about it, folks.
When we say a little extra, we mean a little extra.
Listen, the Stone House is really a part of our life, and it's become, we've had weddings there, we've had bar mitzvahs, Thanksgivings, Christmases.
Absolutely.
You know,
we have also had a illicit 17-year-old's birthday party where everybody got drunk and tore up blood.
Puked all over the place, yeah. So let's cut from there.
No, but if you're a super fan of the show or a fan of Black Dog in general, you got to come through. You got to rent a few nights there, grab your friends or grab your family, come stay in Southwest Virginia, right next to Black Dog. Get a tour of the shop, get a tour of the house, stay in the house.
Yeah.
And if you're shopping at Black Dog Salvage, we might, if the place is not rented in some strange reason, we might give you a tour of the Stone House. So
you've seen it on the show. It's famous.
No negatives. It's the Stone House at Black Dog Salvage.
It's reality.
All right, welcome back, folks. That was some fun right there, talking to somebody.
Steve Thomas is what that was.
Deep experience and a lot of wide breadth of experience. So
there we go.
All right, you good, Robert?
I needed Robert with a little bit more volume.
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah,
everybody does.
Well, you're hot. You're fresh. Keep going.
Yeah. So today we're talking about the one of my favorite episodes. Episode 909, which is Country Store and Gas Station in Grottoes, Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of tie-ins to some of the parts of the conversation we were having with Steve. And one of the reasons I wanted to hear more about this house that this first period colonial that he had restored and lived in for 27 years was the background on that house. And it tied in with reuse, salvage, all the things that we're about. And this gas station, which was, it was, just to give you a little background, it was a rural community, actually wasn't even a crossroads.
That was the Kroger of the area.
I mean, it was out in the middle of nowhere, and obviously it was a farm community, and there was a house across the street, probably the guys that owned the store and ran it. And so this was a gas station built in the 1920s. And if you see those on country roads anymore, it's got a little awning out the front, a porch where you would drive through and fill up.
What do you call that, a portico?
A porte cochere, perhaps? No, I think it is.
Do tell.
I beg your pardon.
People have seen, everyone across the country have seen these things. And originally they would have had the gas tanks with the glass things where you pump up the fuel up into it, and then the gravity would feed it into the vehicles, your Model T, per se, or Model A
fresh
at that time.
Yeah.
But this was something really special. And even though, you can tune into the episode, it's 22 minutes of builds and different things that we were doing and us tearing down this structure. There was so much more in the background of this.
One thing that really, didn't make it to the show because we only had 22 minutes was what the siding or the stucco on that was. You called it something.
Yeah, it was bottle dash.
Bottle dash.
Balderdash.
Bottle dash.
There's stucco. This is a stucco structure. Just to give everybody, that stucco, real stucco would have been a wood lath on the outside of a
What's-
building.
What's a lab?
Lath is just strips of wood,
Okay.
with gaps in it for teeth to grab for the plaster. Stucco is
Right.
plaster,
Got it.
exterior plaster.
Okay.
And so people think of stucco usually has this kind of rough finish to it.
Mhm.
And that's just one of the many finishes that stucco can have. There's something called pebble dash, which is
Right.
that
Makes
you
sense.
do your scratch coat in the stucco, and then you start putting in your finish coat, and then you throw pebbles.
That's like
Oh, yeah.
a Jackson Pollock exterior finish.
So they would pack it in, and it is beautiful. It's
Yeah, it
beautiful.
is.
This is something different. This is broken glass, colored glass.
That's why they called it bottle dash. Yeah.
And so you'd break it up and you'd throw that in. So that
Google that,
They wear
everybody.
gloves, obviously, for that, right?
I mean, this was unique. I'm telling you, this is in the middle of nowhere.
That's why they were allowed to do it.
I wanted to save it, but it was
There's
nothing saved.
There's
It
nothing
was-
to save, and most of it had fallen off. And just that feature of this structure was amazing.
Yeah.
But there was so much more, and it was never touched on in the episode at all, even though I thought that was the most important thing, is this gas station was filled with stained glass, and the interior walls were built with walnut paneled pocket doors as a divider in the room. This whole thing, somebody tore down an 1880s house sometime around this period.
And this was left on the side of the road.
Saved the part, or maybe they tore it down. Maybe
I
it
know.
was there, and they used these parts to make their gas station, make their country store, probably one of the most unique places within 100 square miles.
Yeah, they used to talk about it from, out yonder in the holler.
I'm telling you. The show features us taking these strange things out of a gas station,
Mhm.
but it never is explained.
Right.
Well, now it is.
That's right. And that's
So we're
why.
bringing-
And that's why we're here with the Black Dog Salvage podcast to give you depth.
Well, that's not the only reason, but that's one of them.
We're picking your stuff up off of the cutting room floor.
I'm telling you,
Yeah,
it's an
we're just trying to
opportunity.
shove it back into America's psyche.
Right.
And we get, one thing we got to use on this thing, you saw it very, very shortly, was the Mercedes van.
What a
And this
pivot.
again, guys, this is behind the scenes stuff. So I'm not going to throw Mercedes guys. It's a great product, but they let us drive it up and then they took it away. So they giveth and they taketh away. But I wish they would let us give us a little more next time.
How about keepeth?
Yeah.
Keepeth.
Yeah.
No, I don't mind them giving it if I don't have to give it back.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So we did use it, didn't we? Didn't we load up some of those pocket doors in the back
Yeah.
and take it back to Roanoke?
Yeah, that was reality. What that was, we had to go pick up our tools off the show hauler, put them in there, bring them back. It was great, guys. I'm
trade-out.
just kind of pulling the veil back from the
That-
reality.
that's
of
kind
it.
of how it works.
People watching must have been like,
I
well,
haven't
they got a
seen
new. They talk about all their other trucks. Why
That
didn't
one
they
was
talk about
done
their new van?
That one was done so well. It looked just like it should have been ours, except for those stickers
Big
that were
magnets.
stuck. Yeah, they were on the side.
Crooked magnets on
Yeah.
the side.
Anyway, little behind the scene reality check, folks.
So, and this, like I said, this place, the dividing wall between, I guess, their private storage and a bathroom or something, and the country store was a wall of some of the most beautiful pocket doors I've seen in a long time. They were huge.
They were really tall.
Yes, and they were floor to ceiling, and they were locked together with the mating locks, the original hardware. And Ted and
Mating
I were
locks.
struggling with that wall forever. And finally, I figured out that they were locked, and we didn't have a key. So it was
But you have
classic.
a Sawzall.
My favorite thing, though, about all that struggle with those pocket doors is on that same episode, you get to see them reused.
Yeah, that was with LZ Grace. That's a resort. Actually, resort's not the right word. What's the word?
What is the word? What is
Not
the
a sanitarium.
no, no.
It's a
No,
reintegration facility.
No.
it's,
It was a
place to rest. It was a reserve. We'll call it that. But it's in Virginia Beach, which is the home to many special warfare folks.
Yeah, and these folks had loss, and this is what they were giving back. And we with those doors out of that particular gas station, we built these really cool benches with very personalized with their challenge coins
Challenge.
in
I
it.
remember the challenge.
Yeah.
one.
And it was it was real touching because both Robert and I are former military, and Tay appreciates it, and we were it was a little tearful. It really
We
was.
were certainly honored to be able to help in some very, very small way. And I mean, it was the product, the build was pretty cool, and the production of it, but the purpose was great.
Yeah, the build was fairly like.
And thank you,
Right up the middle.
Trailblazer Studios, for paying for that.
Bob's a freelancer. I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
I'm talking.
No, absolutely.
Bob didn't pull out a check on that.
That was sponsored by our production company, Trailblazer Studios, out of Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah,
our good friends down there.
Yeah, man.
We haven't talked about them much.
With just a little quick plug because they're still going, and we're not.
But we miss them.
Yeah, we do miss them. They were family.
For sure.
We were family.
And then at the end of the episode, I pushed the whole thing over with a forklift. Oh, and that's,
the end.
Maybe some people didn't understand that because that wasn't really fully explained either. The folks that owned this property, it was a hazard. It was a liability. And
they were paying taxes on it.
They were paying taxes on it. That's a liability. They call that a liability, by the way.
That's
in the charting.
Yes. Yeah. So they needed to go away. And unfortunately, as I mentioned during our conversation with Steve, there's a fine line between preservation and constipation. And constipation, exactly right. And
speaking of,
it would have been a real tragedy if these important objects that were in this gas station that had been saved from a house in the 1880s, that had been torn down, built in probably the 1850s, torn down in the 1890s, and then thrown away in 2019.
Well, they could have been absconded with.
I like that word.
I got to add that.
There we go.
Absconded. Now, that's a real word.
Yeah, it is. But I think the way you say it is almost as important.
What letter does it start with?
We're going to get back to that later, folks. We're not going to touch on that today. But the phonetic alphabet is something that we are going to drink. Now, speaking of things that we need to talk about today is bleed factor.
Ooh. For this episode, it was really hard for me to assign a bleed factor to it.
Oh,
and everybody that is just listening to us for the first time, bleed factor is, did I bleed, or did somebody in the crew bleed, or did we have an emotional hit or a physical hit? An
emotional breakdown.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a pretty broad or spectrum.
Maybe we should call it the bleed rate.
The bleed is really,
just the bleed.
No, just the bleed, yep. I think. So, okay. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys to figure out what the bleed was with this one. I mean, I was very emotional on the LZ thing. So, that was my bleed.
Bleeding heart.
Bleeding heart.
There you go.
Yes, there you go. I don't know that that's the right context for it.
It's not normal. Yeah.
Sometimes I like to think of it as not just a physical or a mental thing where it's a human. Oftentimes I'm more concerned with, as everybody knows, I'm more concerned with the salvage than people. So,
there's the compassionate side.
People have feelings.
You'd hurt my feelings if I had some.
Don't bleed on me, Robert.
If I had some. But, it's just every once in a while, what got broken? If somebody's not bleeding, what got broken? And I claim that, I've been told that beautiful oval stained glass window up in the gable was already broken. That's a usual story. It's already broken.
I'm so used to getting thrown under the bus that I took a picture of that damn thing before I touched it. And I go back in my 15,000 photos and find that son of a gun.
So maybe it's a very low bleed rate this time around.
Yeah, we fixed that thing. We restored them and they turned out amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Oh, the bleed number.
I believe it's a 2.
I
mean, the fact that the window was broken, I'm not saying it's your fault.
Okay, all right.
I didn't see you cause bleeding.
Okay.
I just said so.
I'll accept the 2 on that.
2's fair. Yeah, there's episodes where there's multiple people actually bleeding. So this has to be.
So we have to have some low numbers somewhere. Yeah. I mean, a constant bleed is just not a good thing.
No, and we got to be fair with it.
It's called bleeding out.
Bleeding out.
Right. Well, speaking of bleeding out, time for a break. We'll be right back.
We're going to get a Band-Aid and get right back to you.
Oh, just a minute. The Black Dog Salvage podcast is brought to you by Black Dog Salvage Furniture Paint. It's a paint that I've used a ton. It's a paint that I've filmed people using a ton here. It's a paint that people saw us use on the show. And for good reason, we developed it to paint furniture. And honestly, anything else. Metal, wood, plastic,
glass.
Yep. It's super matte finish. It sticks to anything. No prep. You can brush it. You can spray it. I painted my kitchen cabinets with Black Dog Salvage furniture paint. Yeah. And that was 7 years ago, and they're holding up great. So I've used it. I love it. You should too.
Yeah, it comes in 16 awesome colors with really cool names.
Mm-hmm. I like mine personally. You're going to need a Band-Aid or something like that. It's red.
That'll leave a mark.
Yeah, that'll leave a mark.
That'll leave a mark. That's purple.
Yeah.
Roanoke Rain.
Oh, that's enough.
Yeah. Baby, I'm amazed.
So we had fun doing it, and it's a serious product. It really does perform. And your side of the road finds, This is
man.
perfect for it.
Yeah.
It will resurrect a piece of furniture in a heartbeat.
You can go to blackdogsalvage.com and look at it and find Black Dog Salvage on YouTube to see videos about how to use it. There are no mysteries. It's very easy. Buy yourself some.
Straight up.
Black Dog Salvage furniture.
Huge thanks, obviously, to Steve Thomas. Wasn't that cool having him on?
The best.
Good get, Dad.
Yeah,
Good-
you know,
good get on
it's nice to run into people in a speaking engagement and they be nice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Same as they are on stage. I guess.
Yeah, here's these hoo-yahs up here trying to get my picture.
Oh, yeah. I got to put that on the alphabet.
Let's go.
Well, you can find out more about all the stories you've heard and connect with us further at our website, blackdogsalvage.com. And Dad, your line's next.
Oh, yeah. So you can sign up for our newsletter. Let us know where you're here. Just, hey, sign on as a guest. I'm going to start this shit over again. I wasn't fucking ready for this.
He's not really on this. Yeah.
I mean, I got to read something. I can't just ad lib like normal.
You can.
I can. Hey, you can also sign up for our newsletter and hear more about what we're doing on the podcast and Black Dog Salvage in general.
Absolutely. And if you like what you heard, please share, like, and rate our show wherever you get your podcast, because those shares and likes really make a difference.
Yeah, go get yourself a podcast.
We got one.
It's over.